All right, time now for the Legendary Moments Award presented by Budweiser.
Shohei Ohtani, the greatest day in baseball history.
What a catch by Michael Harris. That tops any home run robbery he has ever had in his career. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
She is gone. Gibby, meet Freddie.
There's the cliche that you never know what you're going to see when you go to the park. There's one thing you know you'll never see, what you saw today.
There were a lot of epic moments to choose from there, and you figure the Pete Alonso home run is way up there, but we are ready to announce the winner officially. And the winner is Dan Plesac. We ready to say? Well, I think that gave it away right there. Yeah.
That one swing, right?
We didn't bring in Freddie Freeman to say, Freddie, sorry, you didn't win. Yeah. Freddie Freeman, congratulations on the historic walk-off grand slam. That is the legendary moment of this season.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. A lot of good nominees right there, too. Everyone deserved this. So, but thank you very much for this. This is pretty cool.
It was so emphatic, but I want to even go back and get your thought on it. It's the 10th inning, bottom of the 10th.
Yep.
All right. So Yankees are up on top 3-2 at that point. And it doesn't, at the time I'm thinking it's not even going to get to the top of the order until Gavin Lux was walked by Jake Cousin. I didn't think it was going to get to the top of the order, Ohtani, and then the rest. What were you thinking as you were kind of deep in the hole there?
Yeah, so once Gavin walked, you could feel the energy in the dugout starting to get going, and then Tommy hit the base hit up the middle that got off the glove of the second baseman. So then we had first and second. So then we were feeling pretty good because we had Shohei coming up. But they brought in Nestor, and he got Shohei out on the first pitch. And then knowing the rules and Verdugo going into the stands, I kind of figured they would walk Mookie because that would have been on second and third. So I started just going through the plan of what I was going to do and what I was going to look for in that instance. And that's kind of just what I was thinking about the whole time as I was going up to the plate.
What were you thinking? Because I remember as I'm watching, I'm in the stadium, and I see Cortez come out. I see Nestor Cortez come out. And even I'm thinking, whoa, they're bringing in Nestor Cortez. What were you thinking at the time as you're you're one in the hole at that point? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, they had both warming up, him and Tim Hill. So we were just kind of getting ourselves ready. And then once we saw Nestor get the call, that's when we started going over the video. I actually watched Shohei's at-bats against Nestor to see how he pitched Shohei, because when Shohei gets into the box, everyone's back's against the wall. So I wanted to see what he was going to be throwing to him in that situation. So a lot of cutters and sliders away and fastballs in to up and in to Shohei during his career against Nestor. So that's kind of how I was going into that at bat. So I decided to look closer to me in that instance. So I went swing at the cutter and the slider away so I could just check off those real fast. And thankfully he threw it right where I was looking.
So you're looking at video in the dugout of at bats.
Yeah, so that's usually what we do.
Yeah.
That's usually what we do when a new pitcher is coming in. We kind of look at bats, and usually you look at his last few plate appearances against guys, or just plate appearances against yourself. But since Shohei was already going up, I decided to look at Shohei's and see how he was going to pitch to him.
One last thing, and I'll let Dan join the equation here. Sorry to hog this. I'm fascinated by this because also in my mind, having seen you in the previous series and how hurt you were, I didn't think you could turn. I think that's why the stadium erupted, because it was so violent, because I don't think a lot of people were used to you being able to turn on a pitch given your injury at that point.
Yeah, I hadn't really turned on anything, to be honest with you, in about 3 or 4 weeks. I just really had no front side. The whole playoffs, my front foot just wouldn't turn like I wanted it to. I couldn't stay into that front leg at all. So, but I was feeling so much better going into the World Series. Just got a lot of treatment and got into a good spot. And my first at bat, I hit that triple. So when I ran around the bases and slid into third and got up, and I didn't feel like I was going to fall over, I was like, oh, maybe I'm actually in a really good spot here in the pain wise. So and my hitting was really good the couple of days prior going into. So I was just feeling very confident in where my injuries were and how I was feeling at the plate.
Freddie, it's Dan. When you hit it, did you know it was gone when you hit it?
Oh yeah, I certainly did. Those are the ones when you hit and it starts going up, and you flush it, and you're like, okay, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I pointed like I did. It just kind of happened. That's as cool as I can get, I think. I don't have anything else, but yeah.
Do you remember much of the tour running around the bases? Like, do you remember getting to second and third?
No, I kind of blacked out, to be honest. Like, you just hit a walk-off grand slam in the World Series. It's just kind of, you black out. And usually we wave to our bullpen just because that's kind of what we do throughout the course of the year. But when I went to go wave to them, I looked over there and they were just going nuts. So I figured a wave was not going to do the trick in that moment. So that's when I went with the flex and the scream at them. So, I don't know. That just kind of happened too. And everything just kind of flowed naturally. And I think that's what makes it so cool is, you never think about it. It just, whatever happens, makes the moment just a little bit better.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now. A couple of weeks later now, you're just back to being a regular dad, right? Word on the street is you were kind of tugged to get a new pet, maybe a cat named Champ.
Yeah, so this was like a couple days after we won, and we have grinded, so I needed to I was taking a nap, and we had to go to a dinner just a little bit later, so I was like worn out, and I was like, I'm going to take a nap real quick. And Chelsea was like, oh, there's this a little pet adoption thing where they have a bunch of animals. They'll just stick the kids there for an hour while you rest. And I said, oh, okay, sounds good. Next thing you know, my phone's blowing up, and I'm like, geez. And I look, and it's my wife, so I answered it. And it's literally Charlie on the FaceTime saying, Daddy, can we get a cat? And like over and over and over just asking me. And I like, how do you say no to an 8-year-old? It was hard. I couldn't. And 20 minutes later, there's a new cat named Champ in our house. So he's actually a great cat. So I'm okay with it.
Excellent. Freddie, before we go, like your son Max, how is he doing? A lot of people were wondering how he's doing. A health update?
Yeah, he's doing really well. He just finished PT about an hour ago. He's so ahead of schedule, according to our neurologist and all our physical therapists. So he's doing really well. He's getting a lot more flexion into his ankles, into his knees. So his walking is starting to get more and more normal looking. So we are right on the right trajectory here. So hopefully by the time you guys see him in person in spring training or whatever, you'll just see him running around like a normal 4-year-old then.
Oh, that's fantastic. A lot of people so happy with that, praying for you and hoping for the best. And Freddie, again, we say it even behind the scenes, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Congratulations on the success and the legendary moment. That was fantastic. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dan, very much. We'll talk soon.
All right. Got it. Coming up next, great talking with Freddie. The finalists have been named. Take a closer look at the Cy Young and Rookie of the Year finalists. I'd like to change my pick.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
I can't. I haven't voted yet. I'm going to change my pick next. All right, welcome back to MLB Tonight. Brian Kenny and Dan Plesac here. Your American League MVP finalists, Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt, Juan Soto. Again, most years Juan Soto's offense would be enough, but Judge just towers above everyone else. The one place, again, if you wanted to make an argument, and I was making this argument toward the end, didn't quite get there, but Bobby Witt Jr., who is a fantastic fielder and base runner, would you rather have had that season or the guy who can really hit and also play center field? Dan, eventually I landed. The fact that Judge is holding down center field holds off the award for me, for him, but I'd be tempted to give it to the shortstop who can field and run.
I'm in your think tank again. If you were to ask me today, you get to take one player from any team and build your team around, Bobby Witt would be my guy. Yeah. I think he impacts the game on the bases, with the glove, with the bat in his hand. He had the best year in Major League Baseball, but unfortunately, he did it in the wrong year. When you have a guy like Ohtani that goes 50-50, Judge had a terrible start to the year and had this monster season. And playing in Kansas City, I don't think enough baseball fans understand just how good Bobby Witt Jr. is.
I think when watching the playoffs, everyone got a pretty good idea just how he can impact a game in so many ways. But I land on Judge. So Judge.
Slam dunk.
Judge. Now, National League, it was very difficult toward the end where you have Francisco Lindor, playing a very good shortstop, got hurt down the stretch, though. Ketel Marte was also having a fantastic season, got hurt down the stretch, though, a little bit even longer than Lindor. And then you have Shohei Ohtani, who is a hitting monster also. Base running was outstanding, but does not play the field. So are you close on this with Lindor, especially the way he ended the season?
Listen, this is a tough one for me because I'm thinking a lot like you again. I want to be able to have a guy that I can put out there in those dog days of August, guy that plays a premium position at shortstop. I get it. He single-handedly, it was a down year for the most part for Pete Alonso, a couple of big hits late on in the year. Lindor's taken a lot of heat, a lot of criticism the first couple of years of that contract. He played like an MVP. He, too, like Bobby Witt, unfortunately, picked a bad year to have a great year because when a guy goes 50-50 like Ohtani does, and Ohtani has that PR train, plays for the Dodgers, the World Series champs, did something nobody's ever done in the history of baseball, Frankie Lindor kind of gets left behind.
I tell you, there's a reason no DH has won the MVP, Dan, because you're not out in the field, and we think, oh, but Ohtani pitches. But he didn't pitch this year.
No, but
you got to throw that out.
No, I do. But an element that he brings, that big poppy, and Edgar Martinez didn't bring, there's the base running part of it. He changes the game when he gets on the bases. To a guy that size, to steal 50-plus bases, he's an amazing athlete.
Let's go to manager of the year now. This is much.
His current employer there, he's 23 years old, grades out highly across the board. All the speculation has begun. Does he want to join Ohtani and Yamamoto in Los Angeles? People have been quick to point out online that he grew up a Yu Darvish kid. So maybe the Padres are in play, but the Padres aren't spending money now like they were 3 years ago when they gave, 31-year-old shortstops 11 years guaranteed, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that San Diego is as big a player in the Sasaki sweepstakes as some other teams, but look, not dissimilar to the discussion we just had on Soto. There is a large, lucrative pasture awaiting this young man here stateside.
Yeah. So, look, I'm intrigued, and I'm not into the basic agreement of the Japanese players and their owners, but this I go back to starting with Nomo, and they had to play become a legitimate free agent. It was age based. The fact that we had Ohtani be able to come here at such a young age, and now Sasaki, I'm intrigued by it because they don't have to. So there was a respect factor to this by allowing him. So therefore, every team should be in on this guy. It's no different than signing an international player, or think of him as a draft player, because it's not going to cost you that much, and his salary is actually going to be
so there could be
reasonable.
There could be a legitimate sleeper team involved here.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the Angels were something of a sleeper team when they landed Ohtani 7 years ago. We all thought he was going to the Twins. Remember?
Yes. Well, you mentioned with you, Darvish, don't count out the Rangers either. But look, I think Joel Wolf, who represents him, he represents a lot of the most recent Japanese players. He's gonna take the full breadth of the landscape, right? And I don't know where Sasaki is. Love his stuff, obviously. I mean, it's 100-plus mile-an-hour fastball. His slider split combination, very similar delivery. I see, Matty, to Ohtani. Like, size-wise, he's not quite as big as Ohtani, but I love his aggressive look. I mean, these are just smooth stroke fastballs at 100, 102 miles an hour. Like, that was easy stuff. And it reminded me a little bit of Hunter Green, of just, like, bully fastball, boom, electric, explosive, out of hand. Fastball slider, but the split, what I think makes him a little different, and I think it has to be understood, because these are pitches that look like sliders, and not to get in the weeds, but this is an unusual split. Most guys that throw fastball split, it stays arm side. So the north-south is on the same direction. He throws it in a very peculiar way, and I think it kind of separates him. His velocity last year was down a little bit. He did miss some starts, so I don't know what was into that. But again, the number that it's going to take for him to get over here, it's not like the old posting days of Matsuzaka where it was really expensive. Yeah, I just wanted to show a little Ohtani. I see some similarity, and I loved Ohtani. I know he got hurt, but delivery, finish, and this is the money. You look at a Japanese pitcher, you go to his split, and this we'll be talking about more and more because it doesn't have the same metrics as most split-fin fastballs.
That's great. That's good stuff, man. I see Yamamoto at the top of his delivery there, too. He'll kick. that little pooch punt that they do at the top.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
gonna.
And emotion. I mean, obviously, this generation. I mean, I got a chance to play with Nomo. You know, he came over to the Mets, and like they're so stoic all the time. They may be told not to be emotional. Man, this guy, he's got some fire in it.
It's good. He stays healthy.
A week after the GM meetings, let's reassess with Russ Dorsey, National MLB Insider for Yahoo Sports. Good Monday morning to you, Russ. Roki Sasaki, a big topic of conversation. And there is a date, January 15th, Russ, the refresh date for international signing bonus money. Does that tell us what we're waiting for? Does that give us a timetable at all? What do you think?
Good morning, Lauren Shahadi. So, yes, I think it would give us a date for Roki Sasaki. For everybody out there that doesn't know about the international signing period, this isn't a situation like Yoshinobu Yamamoto where after the age 25 season, you can come over and sign as a free agent. This is going to be a guy that signs on a minor league deal similar to Shohei Ohtani. After December 15th, the new MLB international signing period begins, and all 30 teams will have new international bonus signing money. So if you look right now, if Roki Sasaki posts before December 15th, that would be the past signing period that goes from January 15th, 2024 to December 15th, 2024. There are only two teams currently that have international signing bonus money above $2 million. That's the Baltimore Orioles and the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you wait till after that day to officially post, then that opens you up to all 30 teams. So I imagine Roki Sasaki and his representation are saying, look, we have no reason to rush. Let's sit back, let the signing period go to 2025, and then all 30 teams can be involved in this.
Okay, all the hype in the world before he even gets here. We will be curious to see how it translates on a big league mound. We will see. I feel like I ask about, you talk about potential and what about proven, and that's Juan Soto. I feel like I ask about Juan Soto every single day leading up to him signing, and it is not going to stop, can't stop, won't stop. What are you hearing about his timeline? The guys were just talking about the first number starting with a 7, and Matt just couldn't believe that that could be the case. What are they saying at the GM meetings?
I'm with Batty V. Like, the idea of a number that starts with a 7 is crazy. And you guys were just talking about Paul Skeens doing homework at LSU. Well, I did some homework, Lauren Shahadi. I'm going to throw some numbers at you.
Let me hear
the
it.
highest AAV in baseball last season, and I take Shohei Ohtani out of this because 68 of that $70 million is deferred, was $43.3 million. That was Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Now, if you're Juan Soto and Scott Boras, and you say, all right, Juan wants to be the highest paid player in baseball in terms of total value and AAV, there's a way you can do that. Now, $44 million would be the highest AAV in baseball. And over 12 years, that would be $528 million. Now, that sounds like a number in the ballpark of what we should be thinking right now. However, you have a team like the New York Mets that are involved, and Steve Cohen, who's the richest owner in baseball, they have the trump card, Lauren. They could just say, you know what, here's the blank check one, and we will outbid everybody. That's always in the realm of possibilities. So do I think 700 is a number that's a little bit out of the realm of possibility? Sure. But I think when we start talking about 530 to 560, 575 even, I think that's right around where this thing is going to end up.
It's going to be fascinating. So curious when he signs so other teams aren't held up by the potential signing of Juan Soto. It's a trickle-down effect, Russ. It always is. I'm listening to you thinking of other guys who made a huge impact on their team in a short amount of time. I always think back to Dave Roberts talking about Teoscar Hernandez, the impact he made on that club in a short amount of time. What's his future and where?
Yeah, I would imagine that the Los Angeles Dodgers look at the season that they had with Teoscar Hernandez and say, you know what? We like the cut of this guy's jib. Not only was he a guy that was a great clubhouse presence there in L.A., he had a career year with the Los Angeles Dodgers, went back to the All-Star game, set a career high in home runs, always seemed to be a guy that when you get to that 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, came up with big at-bats for them, not only in the regular season, but also in the postseason. I would look at the Dodgers, but also a team that was looking at him before he signed with the Dodgers in the Boston Red Sox as being the two teams that are heavy on Teoscar Hernandez. But I think the fact that you have a guy that really figured out who he was as a player, but comfort is everything, Lauren. You look at where guys are comfortable. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener. You have to say, hey, I'm comfortable here. I played well here. There are people I like here. They like me as an organization. That's always really important. So as we get started here in free agency, those are the two teams that I would look at for Teoscar Hernandez right now.
Maddie's in on Boston this offseason, Russ. Now you're speaking his language with that team. Hey, Devin Williams, before you go.
All right, welcome back to Hot Stove. We
got that full screen, Bill.
Here it is, Harold, the full screen of notable free agent starters along a distinguished list. We put lefties, righties together in the same eye chart for you, but we want to pick off one particular name to talk about Walker Buehler.
This is a high-end all-star pitcher.
Yes, this is. And, man, what a journey he had in 2024 alone, coming off injury, having not pitched for the better part of 2 years. From the pit to the pinnacle, started out and just didn't look like himself. And I don't know how many broadcasters said that on the air. It almost became cliche. Well, he looked like himself by the end of the World Series. He was dominant, starting with the third inning of his division series start against San Diego, right? He had the clunky second inning, gave up the 5 runs. From that point forward, he was lights out. And I think that his free agent candidacy is as strong as it could ever be right now.
I agree. And I think when I look at Walker, look, he was the #1 pick. We know what transpired. He is a 2 Tommy John guy, as you just mentioned too, Maddie. He missed all of 23. I mean, if you look back, I mean, you have to go back to 21 where he actually had a full season, 33 starts. I've always loved this guy. There is absolute gunslinger aspect look about him. Just pure mound presence says, I'm an ace. I'm going to come at you. I'm going to rip your throat out. It has been a health issue. But I think what's different, and watching the World Series, and yes, you're right, he went through the Mets, he was great, and certainly what he did here in the World Series and then finishing out in Game 5 and everybody's jumping on him. I thought it was a bit coincidental with a guy that they knew that this is what they thought he was going to be, and then the roadblocks with all of the injuries.
Yeah.
But when you do have to go back, I mean, if you look at it, this year, 16 starts. He spent a fair amount of time in Oklahoma City, their AAA.
Right.
And he got to hit around a little bit. So what I saw, you know, guys get stuck in who they are. And I think if I were to look at him a little closer, and I just love the pedigree and who he is and the Bulldog, he started throwing more two-seamers. He throw the big slow hook, you know, because he was a guy that admitted, Walker, you know, how many, if you throw 50 fastballs, tell me how many of them you actually try to throw as hard as you can. And he looked, it's like, huh? I try to throw it as hard as I can every time. And that's not what I saw during the postseason. About a guy to gas pedal brake, temper it a little bit. You don't have to let it rip 97, 98. And the velo's down, but it's going to come back. I think it was an unbelievable learning experience. Somebody's going to get an ace. I'm convinced of it.
You also, along the course of that 13 straight scoreless innings in the postseason, saw so much kiss my aspirin bottle from him. He had this kind of
because that's who he is.
He was just a bad boy out there, man. It was fun to watch because with everything he's been through, it's, you know, even if you're not a Dodger fan, who among us can't get behind a story of a guy that's had failing health for 2 years, probably questioned his own career many times during that stretch, then he comes back and is at his best on the brightest of stages. It was fun to watch.
Missed 22, he has 12 starts. 23 he missed, and then this year 16 starts. Like it went sideways. I mean, you know, he's going into his free agency. He made $8 million last year. Like, you would think a guy that as he's progressing his career up to free agency, it's more than that. Like, it has been a health issue the last few years, and I don't care. I think somebody's going to get – they're going to get somebody, you know, 70 cents on the dollar.
There's a similar conversation to be had around his senior staff mate, Clayton Kershaw, who's going to be 37 years old when the season starts this year, who sent this out on social. Had surgery yesterday on my foot and knee. Thank you, Dr. Elitrosh and Dr. Young, for fixing them. Planning to crush some rehab and be as good as I can be come next year. Thanks for all the prayers and support, World Series champs. And when you talk about crushing a rehab, and here's my take on Clayton Kershaw, and this isn't exactly a hot take because those that know him know that he has this gear. I don't know that there's a harder worker out there among starters to be good. And to last as long as he has, and this is going to, he pitched only 30 innings last year. We're talking about a guy that's getting into 18 years of his career now. To stay this good, you can't just mail it in, right? Not everybody can be David Wells and roll out of bed and throw strikes in their late 30s. I remember being in Anaheim a couple years ago, watching Clayton's day after the start workout. It was 100 75 degrees in Anaheim. This is the day after the start workout, right? And he's not just out there kind of getting the the toxins out of his bloodstream and just moving around a little bit. This is part of it. This guy works his tail off. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I mean, even Nick Steger and Kenley Jansen, along the course of hanging out and being best chums, they were like, "Wow, look at what Clayton does on the day after a start."
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, I'm a layman, and I look at that, and my jaw drops. You did this for 20 years, so you did something similar. But for those of us that are just fans, you're like, I get it. I get why that guy's good.
Yeah.
He's talented, he's gifted, and he works his tail off.
Yeah,
I get it.
When you get to the level, and there's very few, but he will be mentioned. He had a 5 or 6 year window that was every bit as good as the best, Sandy Koufax. He was that good. So when you look at that, or as you showed his workout routine and all that, that's what you do. That's what you have to do. And what Clayton has done as you get older, and yes, he's had some injuries and arm stuff and body stuff. You've got to figure out, how do I make it work? And Cy coming on with that big old fastball, curveball, and won all those Cy Youngs, and then slider, and then started throwing cutters and changeups, and he's evolved. But it comes down to this full screen right here, Maddie. It's a health issue. How many innings can we get? How many starts can we get? Going back, if you go back, you got to go back to 16, really, when he was. Cy Young.
But even if we go back to that, you would take, if you're the Dodgers, you would take the productivity that you got from him in 21, 22, and 23. I'll say, granted, it's 130 innings or fewer. So what? Because it's a dominant 130 innings.
What's it worth? Then that's where I am. This guy is a highway to being one of the greatest pitchers ever. He will have, I imagine they'll put some sort of, some beyond the plaque out at Dodger Stadium. Certainly he's going to have his number there. But what's that worth? What do you pay that guy?
That's a good question. When you're the Dodgers, does it really matter? Because you could pay Clayton whatever you want, and you're going to make it back in the interest that you're making on the Ohtani contract. I mean, we don't have the ability. Dollars. We can't understand their financials.
How about all the marketing dollars coming back from Japan?
Not on. I do know this, too, that when you're an older player, and our analysts here at MLB Network know this better than anybody, you have to stay on some kind of a...
このオフシーズンも各チームや選手たちがどんな決断をするのか胸が躍りますね。特に注目されているのが日本からメジャーアリーグへの挑戦を始めようとしている若き才能を佐々木朗まれ選手です。彼は23歳の若さで日本プロ野球で数々の驚異的な記録を打ち立ててきました。時速100マイルを超える球と独特な変化球を駆使する彼のスタイルは、すでにメジャーのスカウトたちから高く評価されています。佐々木選手がアメリカでどのチームに所属することになるのか、そしてどんなパフォーマンスを見せてくれるのか、今からワクワクが止まりません。さらに興味深いのは、佐々木選手が大谷選手やダルビッシュ選手に憧れて育ったという背景です。彼らもまた日本から MLB へと渡り、大きな成功を収めてきました。特に大谷選手は二刀流としてメジャーリーグの歴史に新たなページを刻み、佐々木選手にとってもモデルケースとなっています。大谷選手のようにメジャーでの厳しい環境を乗り越え、彼もまた新たな歴史を作る存在になる可能性があるのです。大谷選手がメジャーで成功を収めたのは、彼自身の努力と才能だけでなく、MLB の舞台が彼を支え、成長させたからこそです。佐々木選手もまた、MLB の環境の中でさらに成長し、才能を最大限に発揮できるでしょう。彼のような才能が MLB に参加することで、リーグ全体がどのように影響を受けるか、ファンにとっても見逃せないポイントとなっています。また、ドジャースやオリオールズなど、国際契約金に余裕のある チームが彼を狙っているのも注目の敵です。特に来年1月15日以降の新しい契約期間に入れば、全30チームが契約金枠を再取得するため、佐々木選手との契約を目指して、多くのチームが本格的に動き出すことでしょう。ヤンキース、メッツ、レンジャーズといった他のチームも候補に上がっており、彼の選択がどのようなものになるのか、ファンとしても目が離せませんね。そして、佐々木選手だけでなく、今シーズンの FA 市場も注目選手が目白押しです。ウォーカー、ビューラーやフアン・ソトといったスター選手がどのチームと契約するのか、その金額や契約年数にも興味がつきません。ビューラー選手はここ数年でいくつかの怪我を抱えながらもメジャーの舞台で素晴らしい活躍を見せており、FA 市場で大きな注目を集めています。彼が次のシーズンでもエースとしてチームを牽引することができるのか、多くのファンが期待を寄せています。また、クレイトン・カーショー選手も長年の経験と確かな実力で、今もなお現役を続けていることが尊敬される理由の一つです。彼のようなベテランプレイヤーが MLB の舞台で生き残り続けるためには、単なる才能や運だけではなく、日々の努力と自らの体のケアが欠かせません。彼の姿は若手選手にとっても大きな模範となり、MLB 全体にとっても欠かせない存在です。このように、今シーズンのオフシーズンも MLB ファンにとっては見逃せない興奮が詰まっています。日本からの新たな才能を、佐々木朗まで選手の挑戦や、数々の実力派選手たちの新たな契約先がどこになるのか、これからの数ヶ月で次々と明らかになるでしょう。皆さんはどの選手に期待していますか？佐々木選手や他のスター選手の移籍先についてのご意見や予想があれば、ぜひコメント欄でシェアしてください。また、気に入っていただけたら、いいねとチャンネル登録もお忘れなく。最新の MLB ニュースやハイライトをお届けするので、これからもどうぞお楽しみに。MLB の熱いドラマを皆さんと一緒に盛り上げていきましょう。さらに深い情報や選手たちのインタビューもお届け予定ですので、ぜひご期待ください。